Hi, Gaye DeRusso with the Majestic Rider here today on Tilly, Tennessee walking horse. So today I'm going to explain a little bit more about Tennessee walking horses and also the gaited horse, and I'll go over some of their movements. I'll show you some other gaited horses as well so you can see the differences between them. I also have lots of videos on YouTube you can look up to see the differences between them. So when Tilly and I come in the arena, we always work on our lateral flexion and then our vertical flexion to make sure that's always good and that she remembers it. So I don't have to do a lot of it because she understands it now, but you can see how light she is. It's not the bit that's making her light, it's that she knows the movement. Now, we use a lot of different bits in the gaited world. Some people understand why we use them and some don't. I start them all in snaffles, and then depending on how they go and how they act out on the trail, then depends what bit I use on them. So I can put her in a snaffle, but again, these horses have lots of gears, and they usually we can set their heads and do things a little bit easier with the shank bits, but you can ride them with anything. It just depends on the horse, how they move, and what you're trying to get it to do. It's kind of like when you see that double bridle when they're doing fourth level dressage, there's a reason for it. So I don't like to be in my horse's mouth. I try to get them to be very light, and with the shank, I don't have to touch their mouth much. Once they understand, I'm very light with my fingers. So with the gaited horses, no matter what the breed is, you're trying to do lots of suppling work because a lot of these horses have not had a lot of training and they have not had a lot of suppling work. So to get their gait and to get them to be good, the horse has to understand how to communicate with you. And so we want to teach them all these basic fundamentals so we can communicate and adjust them, because so many things affect the gaited horse that don't affect the regular trotting horses as much. So let me explain a little bit what affects our horses. So our horses are kind of more like a standard car, and I always say the trotting horses are more like an automatic car, okay? So you have drive, you have park and reverse in your car, and with the trotting horses you have walk, trot, canter, and then of course you have reverse and their turns and all of that. With the gaited horse, they're more like a standard car because you have lots and lots of different gears. And how many people have looked at their cars now and you're like, 12 gears? Yeah, because that's ones that's so sensitive. My truck has a lot of gears in it. So you have to understand how to use those gears, when to put them in those gears. And so there is a learning curve. And if you're not into learning, then sometimes gaited is not the right for you because you won't get their best gaits. You might get some gaits. It just might not be their best. So you can see Tilly just puts her head down. I am not doing anything. I did not tie her head down. All I did was teach her to give to pressure of the bit with that lateral flexion and vertical flexion. And I've repeated it thousands of times, so now she just knows, Gaye likes my head down there, and I'll just put it down there because she's pretty nice to me. So now I'm just doing my serpentine, another suppling exercise where I'm bending to the left and then I'm just bending to the right. Now many of these horses do not go well to the right, and that's because many have not had a lot of arena work unless they were a show horse. And not a lot of people have done stuff on that right side. So if you have a horse with a problem with the right side, so did Tilly, and she was a trail horse, not a show horse. And so I did lots of work going to the right with her first, and then to the left, and always worked the right more. And now she's pretty good. She's almost even on both sides. So I try to come in and get the horses relaxed. With the walking horses, they have this big overstride, which means they take their back foot and they step it over the front hoof print. So watch as I just walk her slow on a looser rein. So this is just her trail walk. See, she can go pretty slow. So I taught her to go when I put leg on and to slow down when there's not much leg in case somebody starts falling off of her, including me. So you'll see she's kind of walk stopping because she's like, what are we doing? But I'm just doing it so you can see her feet. Watch and see if you can see the back foot stepping over the front hoof print, or is it stepping in the hoof print, or is it stepping behind it? The walking horses are known for overstride, but not all of them get it, okay? So depending on their breeding and their parents and all of that, some will have extreme overstride. They breed that for the show arena. And some will have overstride, but not as much, and that might be what they call a heritage or McCurdy, where it's a Tennessee walking horse bred for trail and not for the show ring, and so it doesn't have as much reach, although it has some, and then some just have a shorter stride. That's what they get. So depending on the horse, depends how much you're going to get out of them. So Tilly just gaited, but she can also pace. With her, she gets anxious. So what I had to do with her to get her best gaits is get her to relax, lower that head, and stretch out. The more she stretches out, the longer her stride will get. And I like a long stride, so if you don't like a long stride, don't stretch them out. Ride them with more collection. But I ride her kind of with semi-collection, where she's engaged in the back end, but I also want some looseness going through her body. So I get more of that rolling motion through her flat walk and her running walk. And when I say rolling motion, if you watch me moving back and forth, I'm just going with her motion. The way she moves, it pushes me forward and back in this saddle, but you can also feel a little bit of kind of a rolling, like if it was a ball that I could ride. It's rolling a little bit. All right. So the first gait is the trail walk. You got to get that really well, and when you want to gait, you got to get all the legs independent. So that means as I go faster, I still want her to land each foot separately and do 4 beats, like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. When they trot or pace, you're usually going too fast on the gaited horse, and yes, many of them can trot. And their gait is right in the middle of those two things, but both the trot and the pace have suspension, so that's why you get that big bump in there. Now there's something called a step pace and something called a broken trot. So the step pace is towards the pace, the broken trot is towards the trot. With those, there's still a 4-beat footfall, but there's not as much space between the legs. They're not landing as much independently. So you do get a little bit of suspension and you get a little bounce in the saddle. And so we're trying not to get that. Okay? All right, so that's her trail walk. So now I'm going to shorten up my reins a little bit, bring up my energy. I'm going to close both legs around her to tell her to start going, and then I'm going to alternate my legs as I walk. Now, why am I alternating my legs? Because I want her to lengthen her stride and stretch out. So you could use both legs, but if you're trying to work on lengthening their stride, then alternating your legs, just having your legs go back and forth with their belly, like right, left, and I'm just touching her lightly with my calves. That helps to lengthen her stride. Now, with the gaited world, you'll see, especially when you come from Western or English, you'll look at the riders and sometimes you're like, what the hell are they doing, right? Because some of them look weird. They're either sitting way back or you see them like this, way forward. So when they're leaning forward, what most of them are trying to do is they tilt their pelvis forward like this, and I do this as well at times, and you're trying to free up their back. So it's almost like hunt seat when you get in that 2-point, and you're trying to free their back up by getting up off of it. Now, what you're also trying to do is get them to reach out with that front end, because the Tennessee walking horse pushes with the back end and pulls with the front end. So the more I get her relaxed, the more she's going to reach out and swing, but the more you're going to see me move in the saddle. And some people like that and some people don't. Okay? But you can ride them differently in different gaits if you don't like that. But I do like the flat walk. This is amazing for my back, so I like to do it a lot. So with her, you see, I'm not touching the bit that much. I have shorter range, so I have contact, but I can let her go looser and let her stretch out. And again, this is her bad direction, but she's doing quite good. Now, I do all the basic arena stuff that I did with all the horses I've ever ridden, because I did hunter, jumper, and dressage. And a lot of these gaited horses don't know those things. That's only going to make your horse better if you put the basics on it. Okay? So what do we teach them? So I'm going to teach her, well, I'm going to leg yield her over, because leg yielding, besides just making your horse more supple and responsive, helps to separate their legs. It's very hard for them to pace when they're going sideways at the same time. They can trot, but it makes it harder to pace. So we leg yield them, where our hands are going towards the fence and I'm pushing on and off with the right leg. But the first time you ever try that with a gaited horse, it will most likely speed way up, because they haven't been taught a lot of those movements. They're so calm, people skip steps, and so they're not very well trained, and that's a big problem because a lot of beginners buy these horses. So when you're having problems, you have to go back to the basics, okay? So you saw I made circles with her. Now I'm leg yielding her. This is all basic dressage. Now you see I'm tilting a little bit, trying to get her to reach underneath herself farther, which will make her head shake more. And then in time, when she gets relaxed and she's not distracted by the chickens over there, her ears will start to flop. So if you've ever seen gaited horses and their ears flopping, there they go. They're starting. They'll only do that when they're relaxed. So it's about relaxation, okay? Many people ride them because they're going towards a rack, sitting way back with high-headed and a tense back, and the horses are not going to flop their ears then because they're tense. Okay? You got to have relaxation if you want to get that ear flop. So now a little shoulder in. Now, when you get those ears flopping, the next thing that happens a lot of times is you'll hear clicking in their jaw. They'll open and close their mouth because they'll do that with the rhythm of the gait. Now, the walking horses will do that a lot when they're relaxed, but so can the foxtrotters and the Rockies and the Kentucky Mountains. So many of them can do it. It just depends what gait you're going for. But it's going to be the slower gaits, your flat walk, which I'm still doing, and your running walk and your foxtrot or a slow saddle gait. As you add speed, they will not be relaxed. Okay, you're not relaxed when you're running fast either. Now, this shoulder in that I'm showing you is an upper dressage movement. So you can use a dressage trainer to help you. But what this does by bringing those shoulders in is it helps separate her legs and get her further away from the pace. And you'll see sometimes I put pressure on her and then I reach forward and let her drop her head, because the more she drops her head, the more she'll relax her back. Now you got to be careful because each horse is different, and some of these gaited horses, just like regular trotting horses, can be heavy on their front end. So with those, you might want to reach and give, but you only want to get them so low because some of these horses also drag their feet, and if they get heavy on that front end, they can catch a toe because they keep their feet closer to the ground, and if they catch a toe, they can trip. They don't catch themselves like regular horses, people, if you didn't know that. Now, you might be like, I've never had a gaited horse that tripped. Well, I get all the ones in training that do trip. So I've had lots of them, and I have lots of experience. So one, it's trimming. So it's good to x-ray their feet, see what's in their feet, make sure you don't have too much toe on that horse, because a lot of them, instead of people doing all this work, just use their foot to get the gait. So for trail riders, we don't want long toes because that can make them trippier, okay? And then you got to work them up. Are they just being lazy? Is that why they're tripping? Some of them are daisy clippers. They keep their legs so close to the ground, and it's bred into some of them for endurance, but that can make them trip on roots and rocks and all sorts of things. Some are just bored. And others, when they say, my horse has never tripped, we ride on technical terrain all the time, that's because your horses are probably paying attention and they've learned how to step over things. And some of the ones that are tripping are from a show arena, and, they were ridden on really nice footing, and now somebody's taken them as a trail horse, and they don't know how to handle the footing. It's going to take you about a year or two to get that horse sure-footed unless something's wrong with it. So just know many can trip in the beginning. All right, so she's quite good, and she's warmed up and done well in her flat walk. She's flopping her ears a little bit. Not a ton, but I'm also talking, so I'm not totally relaxed, okay? But you see, I have light contact here and there, and then otherwise I give with my hands, and I'm tilted just a little forward. Sometimes with my vest on, it kind of looks like I'm slumped, but I'd rather be safe. Just know I'm trying to sit up. Okay, so now I'm going to stop riding. Good girl. We're going to do our turn on the forehand, because you want these horses really broke, because you're going to need that turn on the forehand when you go down a single track and there's a big tree ahead and you're like, hey, we all got to turn around and we have like just a couple feet of room. That's very helpful, or if your horse starts to take off. So now we're going to flat walk this direction. So you want to repeat everything both directions. Now if you noticed, most people go to the left first when they're riding horses. I went to the right because her right side was worse, so I always go to the right first. Now I'm back to what we call the flat walk, and I'm alternating my legs to try to get her to lengthen that stride. I use the dressage whip because if she's not responding to my legs, sometimes with gaited horses, you'll put on your leg and they go too much. So a lot of times I'll just wave that stick or tap behind my leg to get just a little bit more energy, but not too much, because I might get too much with my legs, okay? So with the flat walk, if you compare it to trotting horses, what is it? It's like a working walk, okay? It's a walk, so 4 beats. Each leg is hitting the ground independently, just like the regular trotting horses when they walk, except it's faster than just a plain walk, or what we call a trail walk or a dog walk. Oh, and if you've ever heard the term camel walk with the gaited horses, that usually means they're pacing when they're walking. So they kind of look like a camel, and it's bouncy. It's not like this. So you'll see me going back and forth, but you also might notice a little kind of rolling motion. And that's just the way that they move. Okay? So we're trying to get them to relax, and in the beginning you can only, that was her stifle. A lot of them have loose stifles that'll give out in the arenas. So as you're going, you're trying to get them relaxed. With a relaxed headset, we don't want it way up. We are not showing. I'm a trail person, so if you're looking for showing advice, that's not me. You go to a show person, because if you do what I say, you're probably going to lose, because you're not going to compete against those other horses with all that high knee action and all of that. Okay? We want a relaxed horse, but a relaxed horse in an arena is not very exciting to the crowd, so a lot of times they are not picking those horses as winners. All right. So we got the rolling motion. Her head's going up and down. She's reaching up with her back feet. Watch how far she reaches over her front feet, because the some it's a little, but the show horses sometimes are reaching like 3-4 feet over those legs. A lot more than her, which can make it difficult for the trail though. Okay? So she is barefoot. She doesn't have anything special done to her feet. They're just trimmed for her ankles, and she's a little crooked if you watch her going. Her one front foot toes in, the other one toes out. Her back legs, she's got a little twist in her hocks, but it's in some of the breeding lines of the walking horses. So those things, which can look weird, are normal for her and her breeding. Okay. So let's go back to what would this walk be with a trotting horse. So it'd be more like a working walk, okay? But they usually won't get as much kind of thrust as I'm getting from that back end, because again, our horses are bred with overstride, so they really reach underneath themselves, okay? It's kind of like hypercollection. So they're really under themselves, but we're working on lengthening and not shortening their stride for this gait, okay? So with these horses, when you get them, you want to get that flat walk first, get it down so you understand it and they understand what you want to do, and really do what they say, work the walk, okay? So you trail walk 10 or 20 minutes in the beginning or on the trail, And then when you start working at the flat walk, you try to do this for 10 to 20 minutes because you're really trying to get them good at it. So I do all my arena work at this flat walk. Okay, so now we're going to go down the rail and start doing our leg yield again. Okay, so a lot of these horses kind of waddle when you get them, the walking horses, and some of the gaited horses, because some of the gaited horses have walking horse bred in their lines. So they can feel a lot more wobbly if you're coming from, quarter horses or thoroughbreds or things of that nature, because those horses aren't as flexible as them. So they can feel kind of funny, and a lot of people mistakenly think these horses are neurologic. Now, the breeding, as with any breeding, people have done that. Okay, it might have been different if they just left it to nature, but we have bred certain things into the walking horse, which the vets are taught. There's no footing there, that's why she keeps moving funny there. But what the vets have been taught is neurologic, okay? It's not your vet's fault. This is what they were taught, and they don't have gaited classes or lameness classes, at least the last time I checked, about gaited horses. I wish they would. I'm happy to teach it if somebody wants to do it, but a lot of times they don't, okay? I guess there's other more important things they need to do. So a lot of gaited horses get diagnosed as neurological and get put down. I have lots of videos on that as well, okay? So let me tell you the things while we're doing her shoulder in and flat walking, and you can keep watching her ears and how she moves while I try to tell you all the things. So, what are signs of a neurologic horse? One is overstride. We bred that into the walking horse. What else? Well, when a horse paces, which these horses can do, many of them, it makes them look neurologic and lame. That was her stifle again. Okay, so that's another thing. Okay, they move weird. When horses pace, they kind of waddle. They move back and forth, and so it looks weird. So they also think that is neurologic. Okay, when you pull on a horse's tail as they're walking and they fall over, that's considered a sign of neurologic. Now, when you do that with a walking horse, because of how they're made, with that large overstride, it's very easy to actually throw them off balance. If it's pacey, it's even easier to throw them off balance versus one that's on the trotty side, okay? So keep that in mind. So usually they grab the tail and they pull it one way, they pull it the other way, and they go, yeah, I told you he was neurologic. And I was like, no, he's not. He might be, but that's not the right test. So vets, when you're testing these horses, you might have to do that test 10 times because the horses are calm, so they're not paying attention. 2, they got to figure out what you want them to do, and they're so willing that they think, well, you pull on my tail, I go with you, till they really feel like they're being knocked over. And then they start to pull back. That's when you can tell more of that test if they have a problem. Tilly's like, I'm tired. A problem or not. Okay? So we'll give her a break. Good girl, because I get talking and then she doesn't get a break. So a lot of times it takes 10 times of pulling on their tail when it's a pacey, kind of overstriding, wobbly walking horse for it to pull back and give you the correct results. It should get better, not worse, because people go, well, you shouldn't need to pull on it 10 times. They're built different. They're not a normal horse. This was bred into them, so yes, you should. Anything that is neurologic, the more you do it and the more it gets fatigued, because I'm from the medical field, so this is helpful, gets worse, not better, okay? If somebody's had a stroke and I exhausted them, they're not going to get stronger. They're going to get weaker, and then I could really push them over. So with the horse, give it enough time to respond. What else do they do with neurologic tests? Well, they cross the horse's front feet over. Not a good test, especially for the walking horse. They're people pleasers, and if you sit there and carefully cross their legs over because they're so flexible, they will just stand there with their legs crossed over. And then everybody thinks they're neurologic, and then they push on the horse and they go, see, he still won't put his legs back. Nope, because he's really trying hard to do what you asked him to do, and that was cross his legs. Okay? That's why you don't see these walking horses killing as many people as some of the other breeds, because they're so willing. What else is neurologic? Well, when you spin them around really quick, if their legs flail out to the side, That's another sign as neurologic. But the way the walk-in horses are made, especially if they're pacey, they can do that very easily. They just swing out, but yet they can climb up and down that hill and not miss a step. Okay? Now, what else is neurologic? Tripping. Again, there's many reasons a gaited horse can trip. And yes, they could have a neurologic disease, but you need to rule out everything else first, because these horses can be quieter. That can make them trip. They can be lazier, not pay attention. That can make them trip. They can carry their feet lower to the ground. That can make them trip. Your shoer thinks that your gaited horse needs long toes to gait, and he was trying to help you out. He made your horse trip. Different shoes, heel pain, navicular, ring bone. There are so many things that can cause your horse to trip. So I say to people, when you have a tripper, first we got to start with the bottom, work our way up, but we also got to make sure you're riding them correctly. Because if you're riding them like this, guess what? They go to sleep. And that's not how they were bred to be ridden. And so they can get very trippy. Walking horses are kind of like you're going to get your groceries, and your groceries are all over, and you're like, this is a disaster. Okay, that's what the vets look at the horse, and they're like, he's totally neurologic. And you grab all those groceries, and you get them in a bunch, and you're able to carry them, and then you take them out to your car. Okay? Then it's all together. So with riding the walk-in horse, you're trying to ride it with semi-collection and hold it together, ride correctly, balanced over your horse, and then that can make a huge difference between them tripping or not. But if you ride like this, not paying attention, throwing your weight all over because they are wobbly, you can keep knocking them off their feet, okay? So that's not all of it. That's just some of it. But I like to mention tripping and neurologic because I see horses getting put down that are just walking horses. All right, so let's move on. So that was her flat walk. So our next gait is going to be a running walk. The running walk is very similar to the flat walk. It just has a longer stride, covers more ground, so therefore it's going to be a faster gait. It's still not really fast because people get confused. The flat walk's between 3 to 5 miles per hour, but could be more or less depending on your horse's stride and its conformation and all of that. So our running walk is usually between 5 and 10 miles per hour, but of course you could have a horse that goes faster than that, and you could have a horse that goes slower. So that's just a guideline. As we go to do that gait, if you got your flat walk really good, and you've been conditioning the horse because they have to build muscle, and you've been consistent in the speed because they have to learn how to do it, so you have to do it over and over just like everything else with horses, then getting your running walk, you should be able to just add speed, and in time they'll do it. You can do it up hills, you can do it over poles. If they keep falling into a pace or falling out of the gait, those things will help. And then on the flat, slow it down. Over time they'll get stronger and understand and be able to hold it longer. So we're going to do another turn on the forehand. So again, normal training for a horse. It's just a lot of gaited horses don't do this. So train it so they understand. Okay. So now when you've gone from sitting and you go to walking, especially if you don't know the gaited horse, start slow again. Go back to their trail walk, and you're like, yep, this is trail walk. Now I'm going to go a little faster. So I'm going to alternate my legs and speed up. I'm going to tilt a little bit forward just to kind of open up her back. I'm going to tighten up my helmet. Okay. Now we're going to try and see if we can get more. Okay. So now I'm going to try to lengthen her stride. But as I do it again, many speed up and pick their head up, and then they tense up. And then they shorten their stride. They might get faster, but it gets shorter, and then their legs aren't hitting the ground as independently, and they become more pacey. So what I'm going to keep doing is keeping her head down, and then you'll see me giving with my hands. So I don't touch that bit a lot with shanks. You don't want to be overbearing with your hand. You have to have a soft hand and know what you're doing. And as I'm going around, I keep kind of pushing, alternating my legs, tilting a little forward, and then I keep pushing her weight with my inside leg over to my outside rein. Sound familiar? It's just like dressage. Just doesn't look the same. Okay? So you are supporting. Circles are helpful with the gaited horse because you're bending them. And the more you bend them, which is a lateral movement or what we call a suppling movement, the more independent you make those legs. So it really helps the ones on the pacey side. Now, how long do you do this? Well, as long as they can. When they're getting tired, what happens is they'll have been doing it well, and then they'll start getting trotty or pacey, and then you know they need a break because they're still trying to do what you want and the speed you want, but they're like, I can't use my feet like that anymore. My thighs are killing me. How about I do this instead? Because the pace and trot are very easy for these horses. Okay? So you keep taking and giving. Watch your ears. It's a sign of relaxation. And giving to them. Okay? Now the bit she has in her mouth is a mylar bit. It's a shank. Okay? And when I put pressure on it, it's working off her tongue, but it also pulls on her pole and underneath her chin. It just helps to get her head down much easier with less pressure. But then I'm giving to her. I'm not holding tight or anything like that. Now it's hard. When they go to the bathroom, you lose your gait, so I try to keep going if possible. Okay. So again, I'm tilted a little forward. Now, when you watch them in the show ring, you might see them tilted even more, and sometimes people go, it looks like they're humping the horses. And I go, I know it looks like that, but that's what they want. They don't want to look like they're humping the horses, but they're trying to get that drive from the back end, that engagement. And because it's so extreme, it really shoves those people back and forth. Okay? So you'll see me moving back and forth. And again, I like it because it helps my back. But if you didn't, I could collect her up more, shorten up her stride, and take a hold of her. And you see, I don't have as much. And I can make it even less if I started doing a saddle gait with her. Because Tennessee walking horses can do saddle gait in a rack. They can do all sorts of stuff. Some of them even foxtrot. So it just depends on how you ride and what talent they have. So all I'm doing is trying to keep the rhythm consistent, keep those feet hitting the ground at the same time. It's like a dance, keeping the same speed, and I'm just trying to make her walk as fast as she can. If you're unsure, you make them go faster, and if they're not walking anymore, then you know, well, that was the top speed, so that must be their running walk at this point in time. It'll always be faster on the trail than it is in the arena, because they have somewhere to go and they get bored in here, okay? Unless it was a show horse. And the reason a lot of show horses have great gaits and the trail horses don't is those people work in the arena on their gaits all the time. And the trail people only work on their gaits here and there when they get open space. So when I train them, I always work them in the arena first, get their gaits good, then I start trail riding them. And then I still ride in the arena a couple of times a week to remind them, don't forget, so they get better and better at it, okay? But you'll see she's pretty relaxed. She's not high-headed. She's reaching. She's pulling. She's pushing me back and forth. And her ears are flopping. And this is a fun ground-covering gait for trail. It is sure-footed, because I've heard some trainers say, oh, I don't do that because that's not sure-footed. No, it is. The foxtrot, the running walk, the saddle gait, they're all sure-footed. It's kind of how you ride and what you do with the horse. But I've seen, there's lots of trainers out there. I've ridden them all, so I try to get the gaits for that breed. But there's some trainers, they just get the one gait. That's all they're going to get for you, okay? Because it's easier that way. So you have to know who you're going to as well. Okay, but this is her running walk, but again, this is much faster when I'm out on the trail with her. But she's doing this really well, and she used to fall in like an airplane when I got her 3 years ago. Tilly is now 17. I got her when she was 15, and she couldn't canter, and I'm going to show you that too, but that's still a work in progress. Okay? So again, I teach them to give to pressure, and then I hold, and then I release. I hold, set them up, and then give to them. Okay? Because if you hold them too much, she won't lengthen her stride like she is. Now I'm going to stop, so I'm going to stop riding. Good girl. Okay. So, If you're having problems getting them driving underneath their back end, you can do things like backing up and then going forward, backing up and then going forward and going back into their gait, because that'll give you a little bit more thrust. It'll give you a little bit more push from the back end until that horse understands how to engage itself. With the gaited horses, when we're talking about gait, and we talk about what's called the gaited spectrum, it's like this big line in the middle, and you have pace at one side and trot on the other side, and your gaits are going to be in the middle, okay? Now, on the trotty side, because they'll use different words, they can say square going, and square going can mean it's going more towards the trotty side, or some people say square and it means it's right in the middle. So it depends on the terminology in that person. If they say it's pacey, it's going to be at this end, or if they say it's lateral, it's going to be at this end. So pacey, lateral over here, trotty, square over here, because they use lots of different words. Your flat walk's going to be in the middle, and then going lateral is going to be flat walk, running walk, saddle gait, rack, okay? On this other side, you're going to have flat walk, fox walk, just means a little kind of trottier walk, fox trot, and then broken trot, and then hard trot, okay? So those are all the gaits that many horses can do, and depending if they were bred more trotty or pacey, or they were bred and they just gait perfectly, because it's kind of recipe on what comes out, depends how you have to work your horse and what you have to do. But it can be extremely difficult because see her put her head down just as I picked up the reins, and she's memorized everything. So she's like, oh, I think we're supposed to do this next. Mares are great. They're testers, but they're great. They try really hard. She's like, not that hard. Okay. So she tried, and I didn't really get after her. So we're going to start off slow. So trail walk. Now our flat walk. Now I'm going to go for our running walk. So I just kind of adjusted myself in the saddle. Her head came up when I did that. And I adjusted her back down. And then you see I'm kind of tilting just a little bit to free up her back. So you can see how that's done. But if they get good, you can ride like this. Just a neutral body position. Okay. And that, if you saw her left front just gave a little bit, some of these horses, they have looser ligaments. And once in a while, you'll feel a give. You'll feel a foot do something, and you're like, what was that? It's because they're more hypermobile, kind of like people that are flexible, like you see in Cirque du Soleil. Okay? So sometimes their ligaments just give a little bit. As long as they're not falling down or anything else, that's okay. It's just the way they're made. And some are looser than others. Okay? So now she's getting more ear flop as she's getting relaxed. So again, you got to get the relaxation, and you got to be consistent and do it enough for them to actually start doing it. If you have a horse that does it really well, somebody else probably worked on its gaits. Maybe it was you, but somebody else probably worked on its gaits and really worked hard at getting them, and then you were lucky and got that horse later on in its life. So good for you. But so many of these horses don't gait well because people know that they're calm and skip steps, and so they just sell them. And then you're a newbie and don't know the horse isn't even trained. You think it's trained, or it just has problems, and it's just because the horse doesn't understand. So go back in its foundation, fix that first. Yeah. But whoever you have helping you, or if you're a trainer watching this, just know these horses don't do that well on a very loose rein. It can make them trippy, and you can kill your client because they will fall on them. They're not quick at getting up if they fall. Some of them get a little bit like, where am I? What am I doing? So you want to make sure that gaited horse is always paying attention. And these walking horses, because they reach out so far with that front end and that back end, they're covering a lot more ground versus a quarter horse is covering like a foot in front of them. These horses are covering 3-4 feet with some of them in front of them because they're reaching so far out, and that can be hard when you have difficult terrain, okay? They were bred for the plantation, okay? And so think about a plantation. It's like farmland, sandy, rolling hills, and some can climb just great, but it's harder if their stride is enormous. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so now you know why I'm kind of tilting forward, but again, in the show ring, you might see it extreme. They're trying to free up even more than I am. But you see, I have not done anything to her feet. There's no weights or anything like that. That's her stifle again. Where there's no footing, because it always happens at that gate there, that's usually where they give out. And we don't have very good arena footing. So if the footing slides underneath their foot, they slip. And these horses, they call it a glide ride because they kind of slide their feet forward, kind of like ice skating, okay? So think when you're ice skating and you hit a patch of water or something, all of a sudden your foot slips and you can't get traction. What happens? Your leg gives out. Just slides out from underneath you. That's what's happening with a lot of these horses' stifles, okay? Now, body position-wise, I might be lowering my hand some as I'm talking, but you're just trying to keep a straight line from that bit up to your elbow, just the normal English riding stuff. I'm still alternating my legs, but again, you can use two legs. And then I just keep giving to her. There she thought she was supposed to stop because I relaxed a little bit. Now again, since the flat walk and the running walk look the same, sometimes it's hard to tell what the horse is doing unless you ask the person, like, is that a running walk or is that their top speed? And they're like, yes. So these are not speed gaits. The speed gaits, if you're looking for a horse with those, would be a rack and a speed rack, because those horses can go 30 miles per hour. That's not what I'm riding. We don't have anywhere like that to ride. So we don't have those kind of horses. You don't want to speed rack through the forest, because there's too many things that can pop up. Those people you see riding down dirt roads, and they're riding on the roads and on the grass. That's where they can get that speed safely. Okay, we're going to go one more time around and give her a break. So this does take a lot of work and engagement. That's why they can get tired and get pacey or trotty. And if you have a mare, like I do here, they'll usually tell you, like, hey, I want a break now. I'm getting tired. The gelding will just keep going and give it everything. And the mare's like, nope, I'm not dying. You need to stop and give me a break. Okay? See your ears flopping? Okay, now I'm going to stop riding. Okay. Now, if you bought a show horse and now it's moving differently, it's usually because its feet were different. A lot of them have long toes. The reason they have long toes is it changes the break over the foot. So one, it makes them lift the foot higher. Usually looks prettier. Two, it slows the foot down. So by having that long toe and lifting higher and then slowing it down, those are two things because it has to lift it higher, it can help the gait. So they can have a horse that's step pacing or pacing, and they do that with the shoeing, and then they get it to do that running walk. The hard part is once you give that horse a normal foot, like you bought it from the show arena, and now you're going to trail ride it. So you bought it, you trimmed its foot down, or you went barefoot. Now it's pacing because that foot had corrected it. So it's helpful to know that. And if it was on the trotty side, a lot of times it has the same thing in the back. It might have a heavier shoe in the back, a longer foot, like a longer toe. And then when you trim it up, that horse gets trotty and the other one gets pacey. It's just training. The horse doesn't understand. You changed what it was used to, like wearing high heels, and now it's in sneakers, and it has to learn how to move in those sneakers. And then you have to help it show how to, I'm trying to block the wind, how to keep its legs independent so it stays in gait. And it will. It will. It doesn't matter if they're pacey or trotty, you can get it. You just got to ride them correctly. Okay, but their gait will look different from the show ring versus our trail horses. And I'm I really want an independent footfall. Sometimes in the show ring, not as much. You know, they're looking for fancy, and I'm not a judge, and I don't compete. So you can say, oh, you're wrong, Gaye, and I'll be like, okay, thanks for the education. But what I see is some of them are step pacing, and they're shaking their head because the foot and the angles and all of that stuff has made it look like a running walk, but they're swinging those legs too much together, and that's usually a step pace. Step pace, which is smooth, but not a clear 4-beat footfall. Usually the legs will come off the ground together, like the left hind and the left front both come off the ground together, which they do in a pace, and then the left hind lands before the left front, and that's a step pace. So they came off together, but they land independently. With a pace, they both come off the ground together, so left hind and left front come off the ground together, and then they land together. That's a pace. I have other videos on that. All right, so we're going to try her canter. It's probably not going to go so well, but we're going to see what happens. I've done lots of different things with Tilly. It's hard for her. We're going to go to the right first, and we'll just try it and see how she does. Okay. So we're going to do another turn on the haunches. She's going very slow. Wasn't that great? Okay. So when we go for the canter, I half-halt shift my weight to the outside and ask her. She can canter while on trail. I can actually canter pretty fast in here, but I'm trying to get her to do that rocking horse canter. And so when she does it, she gets her legs uncoordinated and sometimes can't figure it out because the lateral horses sometimes cannot. And so she'll only get 1 or 2 steps and then she'll fall out of it or lose it or tell me it's too difficult for her. So we just do little bits here and there. Then we go back to our running walk. So you don't want to run these horses into the canter, especially the pacey ones. The trotty ones, it's easier because they can fall down. Now you might be like, what was that? That was one of her canter steps. Okay? So with her, I got to keep her hind quarter way in. Good girl. And then I just ask her for steps here and there in the beginning. And then as she gets the hang of it, then we ask for more. Good girl. She's like, I'm just making a little effort. It's taken Tilly a long time because she had a lot of anxiety. Imagine being 15 and not knowing how to canter. And you might go, couldn't she canter when she was loose? Nope, she could not. She just cross-cantered, and that's not a correct canter. And a lot of lateral horses do that. They cross-canter. Good girl. Okay? So, now let's go back to our running walk for a minute and give her a break. So if you do transitions like this, you do a step and then you go back to gaiting, you'll get them more relaxed because some of them get so tense in that canter. And once they get tense, they can get inverted. And once they're inverted, they get pacey. And then it's very hard to get them to canter. These horses can pace so fast that if you have a pacey one, you cannot usually run it into a canter because they can pace faster than they can canter. You got to give them cues, use jumps, poles, something to help you, or the backup. Okay, here we go again. Okay. Then we'll try over here. She's tired. She's like, I'm older, Gaye, give me a break. And she's not a super energetic horse unless she's anxiety stricken. Good girl. Good girl. So she does a couple of the steps in place. But again, this is good for her. There, it was wrong. Good girl. So you're trying to just move on when they give you one good step. And over time you add more and more. Okay? Good girl. So this direction has been extremely hard for her. So to the right, that's pretty good for her. I like to get both just to make them even if it's not that great, that's okay. On trail, it's much easier. So if you have a hill, that puts them more on their back end and helps them. But with the pacey ones, you got to get it pretty darn good in the arena before they can canter on the flat. They can canter the hills, but they can't canter the flat because they can't figure out what to do with their feet because they're so lateral. The trotty ones, it's much easier. And so you usually have more trotty ones with the Rockies and the Foxtrotters and the Icelandics. But there's a lot of pacey walking horses. Girl, so I'm going to back up for a minute. Now, you might not be thinking about it, but she really has to think, what legs do I use? And I have to communicate with her like these. Your left hind, and then your right hind, and your left front, and then your right front. So all those precursors of the leg yielding and the shoulder in, haunches in, all those things help us. Good girl. Okay? Now we're going to stop and reward her. Good girl. So I do give her little treats for the canter because she tries so hard to do this for me. And she doesn't know why. Now some horses, these horses can canter and they can canter quite well. The problem with Tilly is she was on the pacey side and she was 15 when we started this. That's like you being 50 and learning to ride. It's hard, right? If you're 20, it's much easier. So the sooner you teach them the canter, the better. Especially the pacey ones, it's only going to help their gait. With the trotty ones, the reason people say, oh, don't canter the trotty horse is because cantering is easy for them, much harder for these guys. And so if you teach that trotty horse to canter and you don't do it clearly with cues and only let it canter when you tell it, it starts cantering all the time because it's easier. So it's not that you can't teach them to canter. You can, but it has to be a cue, and you have to be clear and never let them come out of the gate except when you ask them to canter. Okay? Because it's harder for the pacey horses to do it, they stay in their gait much better. They don't try to fall in the canter usually. So, because for them it's easier to gait, but for the trotty ones it's easier to canter. So you kind of have to decide what's more important to you. And if you want it all, you're like, no, I want to gait really fast and I want to canter. Well, then it's good to find a horse that can already do those things, because training them to do so when you don't know how to train horses can be extremely difficult and frustrating. All right, Tilly. So now we're going to go the other way, and this way we'll get more steps. Now again, I've played around with her and I've cantered circles and all of that, but it's much, much faster. And again, now I'm trying to get that more slow rocking horse canter. On trail, we will do this some, but not a lot, because it's hard on them. You know, it's like an upper level dressage movement. Like, you don't see people doing pirouettes all the time on the trail. So you can do it, you just can't do it for long periods of time because it's hard. Good girl. She's trying to do it on her own. Now see how some of the time she's faking it? She's just throwing her head. Good girl. Good girl. They're funny. Now, she just did that when I was lunging her, and if vet saw that, they might think she's lame. Where I know, no, it's because I taught her to canter. So you might see some weird things like that, and they're looking at them like, what are they doing? A lot of these horses, when they're bred well and young, can just throw themselves in that canter. And I've had people tell me, like, my chiropractor said something's wrong with the horse. My vet told me something's wrong with the horse. And I go, no, especially when they're pacey, they kind of throw themselves more. Or they call it a leaping canter, or the rocking horse canter, because it's up and down, but they're not really going anywhere. Okay? So, yeah, it's helpful to understand that. Another thing that they do is weird is half canter and half gait. We call it a gaitalope. And that'll make your horse look lame too, where it's kind of gaiting in the back and cantering in the front. It's fun to ride, but just know you want to be clear with what you're asking your horse, because then they won't do it at random times, and then your horse doesn't look lame to people. All right, let's try it again, Tilly. And again, you might look at Tilly and go, she looks so calm. She was not. She is now, because we know each other, and I've had her 3 years, but she used to be very anxious. Good girl. See, she fell out of it there, but that's where the footing gets not so good. Easy. So she got a little pacey, so I was trying to slow her down. So now she is getting a step here and there, but not in a row. Good girl. Now I'm going to ask her again. So anywhere there's not good footing, they usually don't do it well. That's why they do it so well in the show arena. That wasn't so good, Tilly. So let's try a back up. So back up just gets them on their back end, but it can make some rear up as you're trying to do this. So you got to be careful. And some of this will feel like a rear. See what she's doing? Good girl. Okay. So with anything, you might think it looks weird or odd, and you don't have to have your horse do that. We teach him to do that. I didn't do anything crazy to her. She was still barefoot. I just taught her to go slower and slower with more collection, and then we do circles at times. Okay. So there she kind of she got one step, and then she just fell out of it. But again, because she gets lateral, it gets hard. But that's why she can gait so well. Good girl. Good girl. So that's good enough for her. So she does not have a perfect canter yet. If I got her when she was a 4-year-old, she would. Because she has talent. She has lots of talent. It's just she had muscles for the gait and none for the canter, because they didn't really do it that much except on an uphill, and she was probably cross-cantering because that was more normal for her. So just trying to explain all the different things, and I'll show you different kinds of gaited horses so you see the little ins and out, little quirkiness with them. And just remember, you can follow me at website, majesticrider.com, and free training on Facebook. It's under my name. And all I'm trying to do is educate everybody so you really understand these gaited horses, make them better, give them an education. And it's great if you gait them naturally, you know. I think it's they're fancy enough just the way they are, but again, if you're going to show, then you probably want to follow someone else, because I'm not a show person, and you're going to lose if you follow me. You'll win if you follow one of the show people. And there's many good show people out there that do it correctly with humane techniques. They're not doing anything crazy. And I think, you know, the walking horse has got a bad reputation because of some of the things that they've done to him over the years. It's not the horses, that was the people. So the horses are not crazy or anything, and they do some different things, but they're super fun to ride on trail. They're forgiving, they're kind, and they really do make great horses. All right, remember to like and subscribe.